Good morning, everyone. In our last session, we discussed about the causes and consequences of the fault. So, consequences we will continue. Causes we discussed previously that a single line to any fault that will occur because of the failure of the insulation, main reason, and single line to ground fault that is the generally most common fault. In transmission line, this single line to ground fault occur because of the flashover or maybe because of the puncture. Okay, and then the reason can be ionization of the air or the defective insulation. So that is the reason. In winding, in case of machine, it is the failure of insulation between winding and core. Line to line fault, we discussed that in distribution system it may be because of birds, kites, or tree limbs probably, but in case of transmission line it is because of the swinging of the conductors due to storm or heavy wind conditions. It is also ionization of the air between two phase conductors here. Double line to ground fault, any two flashover across two phases probably can lead to double line to ground fault. And then we have seen the possibility of a triple line or triple line to ground fault, which is very rare fault, failure of interlocking between the circuit breaker and earth switch may lead to the triple line fault. However, as discussed that in even though there is a triple line or triple line to ground fault, there is no current flows through the ground generally because it is a symmetrical fault, and that is why the ground current will be zero in case of triple line to ground fault. So electrically both the faults are similar. If I say triple line or triple line to ground, they do not carry any current to the ground. Now, why do we need to protect against the fault? That we want to discuss. So these are the two kind of damages that may occur to any equipment in the power system in the event of the fault. First thing is the thermal damage or thermal breakdown. As we have seen previously that when the equipment or conductor carries the current, there is a heat generation at a rate of I square RT, and there is also a heat dissipation. And when the rate of heat generation and rate of heat dissipation, when they are balanced, the temperature of the winding would remain constant. And generally the insulation, type of insulation, have you studied various class of insulation and the temperature it can withstand? Yes or no? Have you studied the different types of insulating materials and their temperatures, how much temperature they can withstand for continuous period of time? Yes or no? Class of the insulation. Yes. Yes. So depending upon the different class of insulation, say you have selected a particular insulation for your application where it can continuously withstand the temperature of the machine. So generally what will happen in under normal operating condition, when the current is up to rated current, the temperature of the winding can be easily withstand by the insulation because you have selected insulation according to the temperature. But when there is a fault current is number of times, let's say 2 to 8 to 10 times the full load current. Okay, full load current is the continuous maximum rating. CMR is continuous maximum rating. What it means? That much current, which is full load current generally. This current, any equipment can take without any problem for continuous period of time because it is rated for that operation. And in that case, heating is not an issue to the insulation. But now say when the fault current, there is a fault flow of current to an undesired path, the current would rise to 2 to 8 to 10 times the rated current depending upon the nature of fault. So what will happen then? Heat generation will increase in the square proportion. Let's say in comparison to the rated current, if the current is 2 times, you can say the heat generation is in the square proportion, so 4 times. Now insulation is not designed to withstand this heat. If it continues for a longer period of time, it can withstand this heat generation for only small amount of time depending upon the thermal withstand capability curve. What is thermal withstand capability curve? Let's say this is a time t. This is the this is time t. This is current I, and suppose this is full load current. So it can withstand this full load current for any period of time t, and characteristic would be like this. If the current is, let's say, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and so. So for any equipment, it will have a thermal withstand capability curve where its insulation can withstand full load current for any period of time. But if the current is more than rated current, let's say 2 times, it can withstand that current for only this much time. If current is 3 times the rated current, the heat generation can be withstand by equipment for this much time only. You can see it is inversely proportional. Okay, and that is why there will be breakdown of the insulation, and then it may lead to another fault. Okay, and the problem will be the deterioration or breakdown of the insulation due to fault. Again, I am saying there was fault already, and that it will lead to another failure of insulation or deterioration. Got it? Got this point? What is the thermal damage or thermal breakdown? Any fault will lead to further deterioration of the insulation, and it may lead to further breakdown. Okay, there is another effect which is more severe than the first one. So first one is the thermal damage, second is the electrodynamic damage. What is electrodynamic damage? To understand this, uh, if you have studied the machines, we, let's say, a transformer. Okay, so in transformer, there is a 3-phase primary, there is a 3-phase secondary, and the flux of this windings will be set up in the core. Yes or no? And this flux are not in phase with respect to each other. So what will happen in a common, let's say, space, when there are flux which are not in phase, they will interact with each other and they will develop some force or torque. Yes. Have you studied the measurement? Induction disk type watt-hour meter. Or let's say induction motor. If the fluxes are in phase, will they develop any force or torque? When does the force or torque will be developed? Yes, we require some phase difference. Okay, and what will happen generally, let's say in transformer core, or let's say if you think of the air gap between the stator and rotor in the machines, there are different flux produced by stator and rotor, as well as in case of transformer due to primary and secondary windings, and these flux are not in phase, and that is why there will be some force acting on the core or body of the machine always. But however, the design of the machine is such that that it can withstand these forces without any problem for the no load to full load capacity. So let's say transformer core can withstand the forces exerted by the interaction of the flux on the core without any problem for no load to full load current capacity. But what will happen when the fault current is very high, 8 to 10 times, these forces would rise up to a level which cannot be withstood by the core or the machine body, and it can result into the D shape or destruct the equipment within, this is important, within 6 to 8 cycle. What is time period in seconds? Can you tell me? This repelling forces, because say this forces would also rise proportionately with the current, and machine is not designed to withstand this repelling forces, heavy forces due to fault current. It was designed to carry out the forces under normal circumstances. So if the fault remains in the system, some of the fault, okay, not all the faults we are talking about so destructive. If some of the faults, we will see also that which faults are so destructive, that even if it remains in the system within 6 to 8 cycle, it can have a structural damage. Understand why structural damage is very critical. Okay, what is 6 to 8 cycle period? How many milliseconds? 120 to 20 milliseconds one cycle. So see, this is the time you have to operate your protective schemes. Okay, this is the time within which you have to identify the fault and you have to disconnect the faulty part from the system. Fine. Now, why structural damage is very dangerous? Have you seen any large power transformer? Let's say 100 MVA, 50 MVA, or even 10 MVA transformer. Have you seen it? Yes. So now, if let's say the core of such transformer, let's say bends from some place due to this repelling forces. Okay, there is a D shape or a large generator, turbo alternator. Okay, running at a high speed 3000 RPM, and there is a very small air gap between stator and rotor in few mm. Now the forces acting on the rotor body in the generator is uniform generally on different parts of the rotor, on the circumference of the rotor. What will happen if these forces are non-uniform due to fault? Let's say there is a line to ground fault and current is very high, which has disturbed the flux distribution in the air gap between the stator and rotor, and due to this the forces they're not in uniform manner. At some of the part there is a heavy forces, other in other of the part or circumference of the rotor the forces are less. So would it be possible that the vibration or the heavy forces can lead into the stator and rotor teeth collision? Yes, it can result into structural damage. I mean to say that there is a collision between stator and rotor because very small air gap and huge vibrations, or maybe a de-shaping of the transformer core. It may happen. So now, would you have uh, a backup transformer in case if the transformer core is D-shaped in your plant? For example, you have a 100 MVA transformer and there is a structural damage, the core is D-shaped. What time do you think it will take to replace the core? Probably. Any rough idea? 100 MVA transformer you have in your substation, and there is a structural damage to this transformer. How much time would you think it will take to replace the core? Anyone? Anyone? Just rough idea if you can give it, how much, okay, I am talking about 100 MVA transformer. Nidhi, your answer is correct. The remaining answers are not even nearby. I am talking about 100 MVA transformer, so you must be first able to realize the size of 100 MVA transformer, okay? If you have seen it in the substation somewhere, it will be in months, because these transformers cannot be repaired directly on site if there is a major problem. This transformers are are very huge in size. You need to send it to let's say BHEL. Have you heard the name BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electric Limited? Small vendors cannot even cannot carry out the maintenance work on such large transformers. So it will take months, first days to transport it. When it is required for some let's say structural damage, the maintenance, you need to send it to the company like BHEL. Then they carry out the maintenance work, then it will come back, and by the time it will take months. And you would not have any backup transformer for this. It is very costly. You cannot keep a backup transformer, which is in crores of rupees, the cost. Okay, so that is why whatever happen, there should not be structural damage to equipment. This should not happen in any case, and that is why not all the faults. Understand? I am not talking about all faults. This will not happen in all case of faults. We will see the faults which are very severe that can result into this. Those faults must be cleared within this period of time, before 6 cycles. Before 6 cycles, I am saying, because if it's sustained for this much time, then it will lead to structural damage. Fine, got it. So now is it clear why do we need protection? We need protection system to avoid two of the possible damage due to fault. One is called as the thermal damage, second is called as the electrodynamic damage. This is due to heat generated, severe heat generated due to the rise of the current, which the insulation cannot withstand. It is not designed for continuous operation, and which is decided by the thermal withstand capability of the insulation. And second is the electrodynamic damage, which is due to the repelling forces generated due to high fault current, and which can lead into the structural damage, which is more severe. Fine, clear? Why do we need protection? Then see, this are some of the, this is a very you can see the damage. It will take time to repair this. Okay, like see, this is the insulation thermal damage which I am talking about. You can see clearly see the cable, the insulation is here, it's in there. Okay, this is, you can see the laminations and everything. Fine. So faults are very dangerous, can lead to either thermal or electrodynamic damage, and that is why it has to be the equipment has to be protected against the severe effects of the fault. Fault can be transient or sustained. Transient means it is temporary, means which only require interruption of the supply. Just like as the flashover. Okay, where the air gets ionized, and if you interrupt the supply, air will deionize again, regain the dielectric strength, and the fault is temporary. It has a dip. It would have been disappeared by the time. Sustained means permanent fault. As said, it requires maintenance, kind of let's say flashover, and the second was puncture. We discussed. Okay, puncture of insulator. So which is a permanent fault and require maintenance, and by the time there may be possibility of the interruption of the supply in the case. What are the consequences? Destruction or partial damage to the equipment due to fault, it can happen. Voltage drop because current would rise to a very low to very high value, that can result into the voltage dip. Loss of revenue if you require because of the interruption of the supply. Loss of production to the utilities or to the let's say consumers. Power system instability, it can result into, we will see it in detail this. And single phasing due to open circuit, sometimes this can also lead to the performance of three-phase system if any one phase goes out of service. What is the remedy? Solution is that you isolate the faulty part and uh, from the rest healthy system, so that the system does not get affected. Fine. Now, if we see the fault statistics in the power system, generally most of fault occur in the transmission line. Out of let's say total fault you consider as 100% of the fault, then overhead transmission line alone will have around 50% of the total fault in power system. Obvious reason, very the large span, it's wide area, it covers hundreds of thousands of kilometers, it covers in the field in comparison to other equipments of the power system. Then next set of faults that occur mostly are in the cables. Switch gears. Switch gears includes breakers, isolators, and all this relays. Power transformers, CTs and PTs, control circuit, fault in the control circuit itself, and some miscellaneous other than this. So understand that transmission lines are subjected to the risk of the majority of the faults in the power system. And if we see the statistic of the overall fault, 100% fault that has that occurred in power system, if you see, then 80 to 90% fault are mainly line to ground fault. Majority, most common fault in power system. And that too, mostly that is flashover. Mostly I'm saying is flashover. Okay. So this is single line to ground fault is the most common fault generally in the power system. Now we will just brush up the symmetrical component fundamentals. To understand its importance in the relaying from the relaying point of view, we know that any unbalanced set of phasors, if it is an unsymmetrical fault, because see, line to ground fault is the most common fault, which is an unsymmetrical fault. Okay, so any unbalanced set of phasors, if I draw, let's say this is IA, let's say IB, and for example, sorry, this is IC. Okay, just a minute. Suppose there is a single line to ground fault has occurred in A phase. So it has an unbalanced set of phasors, currents. Okay, current in the A phase would rise in comparison to other two phases, let's say, and not even in let's say in phase. This is IA current. You have seen this. So this unbalanced set of phasors are converted into balanced set of balance, because here we have three quantities, A, B, C, three phases. So it will be divided into three set of equations: positive sequence, which is having the same set of the rotation, negative, balanced and opposite sequence than the original phasor. It has the same sequence as the original phasors and zero sequence, no sequence at all, but equal in magnitude and in phase. Okay, so this is now balanced, and per phase analysis, any of this can be taken, and you can carry out the fault current calculation on single phase phases. Fine. So if you add this IR plus IR1 plus IR2 plus IR0, it will be again IR, the original phasor. Same way, if you add IY1, IY2 and IY0, it will be the original B phase phasor, or RYB, let's say IR, IYIB. Okay. So this is about symmetrical component theory, and if you remember, uh, in healthy condition, if the system is in balance, negative and zero sequence components are not present, only the component which is positive sequence. During single line to ground fault, if you remember that all three sequence currents are same, so you connect the positive, negative, zero sequence diagram in series with each other, and all three currents are equal, and in case of line to ground fault, all three sequence components are present. In case of line to line fault, is the ground is not involved, there is no zero sequence current, and only positive and negative sequence currents are present. In case of double line to ground fault, again all three sequence components are present, and if you remember, you have connected three sequence network positive, negative, zero in parallel to each other. In three phase or three phase to ground, you can say as it is a symmetrical fault, only positive sequence component is present. So generally, if you design relaying applications, so what is convenient is to design relay which operates mainly on positive sequence components, because this is the component which mainly present in all fault type, you can see. So generally relays are operated using the positive sequence quantities, except a few relays which may use the zero sequence, as well as some of the relay may operate on negative sequence quantities. Fine. Now, next terminology, we have seen about the fault, its effect, its causes, and everything about the need of the protection. Second terminology is called as abnormality. So what is abnormality? Abnormal operating condition or abnormality can be defined as it is an operating condition which is not a fault, but if remains for longer period of time, then it may result into fault. So it is a situation which is not a fault initially, but if it is there in the system for a longer period of time, it may result into fault. So then, what are the example of the abnormality? Overloading is an abnormal operating condition. It is an abnormality in all the equipments. Okay. So suppose an equipment draws overload current, because it is being overloaded, it draws the more current than it's rated. Then for some time it does not create any issue to the equipment. For example, let us take some induction motor. Okay, and as I have said previously, we will consider the thermal withstand capability curve. So suppose this is a thermal withstand capability curve of an induction motor, which I am drawing here. This is the current, this is the time, and this is rated current of the motor, let's say full load current. Fine. And if I draw the thermal withstand capability curve, which is mainly corresponding to insulation. Fine. Now, in case of motor, what will happen? Suppose it can take the full load for any period of time. You can see, as you can see the characteristic, there is no time limit for which the motor can work on uh, the full load current. But for example, you have overloaded the motor by some percentage. So what will happen? Now motor will draw more current from the supply, and as the current is more than the rated capacity, it is more than the continuous maximum rating CMR, this current will cause additional heat generation in the winding, and that will overheat the insulation, and insulation can withstand this overheat as per the design of the insulation for this much period of time. Now if this load exceeds beyond this time, this overload exceeds beyond this time, the insulation will deteriorate, and it may result into the failure of insulation. It would burn out, and that is why this is very important in case of any machine, that it is decided by the insulation that you have used, that how much heat it can withstand for how long period of the time, and that is why overload is an abnormality. Suppose this motor is overloaded for this much time only, okay, for this much time, and then the overload is released. It may happen with, in case of motor, that it may be temporary overload. It can happen with any of the equipment, let's say transformer, transmission line, generator, that they are being overloaded for a specific time, but this time is within the limit, and then overload is released. Do we require tripping? No, we do not require tripping. It is well within the limits. It can withstand this overload for a certain period of time. So it is an abnormal condition, but if it exceeds this period of time, then the insulation would deteriorate, and there will be failure of insulation. Another types of abnormality we will see when we will study the generator protection, transformer protection, and motor protection. That in case of induction motor, under voltage, if under voltage operation of induction motor is an abnormal operating condition, it is not a fault. But if we continue to operate induction motor in under voltage condition beyond a certain time, it may result into fault. Single phasing, say induction motor is operating on 3 phases, and one of the phase is out. Let's say fuse has blown out. We don't know, and motor is operating only on 2 phase. So then for certain period of time, it has not it has no issue. But if it is operating beyond certain point of time, then it may result into fault. Similarly, stalling in transformer, overheating, overfluxing in generator, field failure, unbalanced loading, over voltage, motoring, pole slipping, overheating. All these are not fault. They are abnormal operating conditions, and machine can operate for certain period of time depending upon the design. But if it is being operated beyond a certain period of time, it may result into fault and can damage the equipment. So clear the difference between fault and the abnormal operating condition? Yes or no? So overload is not a fault. Remember, overload is an abnormal operating condition. Then let us now discuss what are the functions of. See, we are on a right now. We are discussing very basic terms. We have not yet started the protection part. Okay, this is just the basics of the protection before we study the relaying schemes. What are the functions of the protective scheme, relaying scheme? Understand this word. I will explain it in the next slide. What do we mean by protective scheme? It is not only relay. We will understand. Okay. So relay has to sense the fault, and it has to perform few functions. What is the first function it has to perform? It has to operate the correct circuit breaker and disconnect the faulty part from the rest healthy system as quick as possible, so that it will minimize the damage, any possible damage due to fault. Minimize any possible damage due to fault. This is first thing it has to do to equipment in which the fault has occurred. So first is to trip the proper circuit breaker, to disconnect faulty part from the healthy system, and that is in some quick time. And why do we want to do this? We want to do this that we want to minimize any possible damage due to fault. Remember, no protective scheme can prevent the damage. Can prevent the fault. Okay, no protective scheme can prevent the fault. What they can do, they can only minimize the damage due to fault. This can be done by relaying scheme. Relaying scheme cannot prevent fault. So don't misunderstand the concept. Protective schemes cannot prevent the fault. Fault can be minimized. The event of the faults can be minimized by proper design, maintenance, operation. However, what protective scheme can do is only it can minimize the possible damage due to fault. Second is to operate the correct circuit breaker to isolate faulty section from the healthy section. In case of abnormality also, sometimes because we have seen that abnormality, if remains for longer period of time, it may result into fault. So if there is an overload, suppose this overload 10 minutes, okay, I'm just giving an example that any motor would take this much overload for 10 minutes. So what do? We should design a relay. If this overload remain for 9 minutes, then we will trip the motor, because we don't want to exceed it beyond 9 minutes. This overload, it may result into fault, failure of insulation, and that is what the relay also must be able to operate in case of the abnormality if they remain for longer period of time, like this overload and unbalanced voltage, under voltage. And third is to clear the fault before it becomes unstable, and then fourth one is to identify actually where the fault is. It is very important. Why it is required? Can anyone tell me? Why it is required? Can anyone tell me? Yes, Viral, I will discuss that. We'll have to take the relay having tripping time less than the maximum amount of time fault occur. We'll discuss. Still, we are in the very basic part, so don't worry about it. Okay, with each applications we will discuss this about the tripping time. So don't worry. Okay. Now, can anyone tell me why relay should do this? To identify distinctly as to where the fault is occurred. Why it is required to identify that where the fault is occurred? Any idea? Quick response required. Yes, correct. Okay, Nidhi. Fine. Then anyone else? Why we require to know where the fault is occurred? So the answer is that the troubleshooting and maintenance will be easy. Now understand, if we have a 300-kilometer long line and suppose there is a puncture in the insulator disc. So if we don't know that at which location around, in which tower exactly, starting from substation A to B, let's say, where does the puncture has occurred, how much time it will take to you to identify the faulty insulator disc? Do you understand what I mean to say? समझ में आ रहा है? if we don't know the location on a 300 in a 300-kilometer long line, that where does actually the fault has occurred, will it be easy for you to identify the faulted insulator disc or string so that the replacement can be done? क्या करना पड़ेगा अगर आपको नहीं मालूम है कहां पे फॉल्ट हुआ? What you have to do if you don't know the location of the fault in a transmission line? आपको हर एक टावर पे जाके चेक करना पड़ेगा. How much time it will take for you to understand, to troubleshoot the problem? So, for example, if relay tells you that the fault location is 100 kilometer from substation A, then what will happen? The maintenance team will directly go to the tower locations which are there in the nearby 100 kilometer from substation A, and the let's say interruption time, okay, will be minimum. So that is why it is important, even in case of finding, in case of cables, if we know where actually the fault has occurred, the fault location, then it will be easy. The maintenance time, the interruption time, breakdown time will be minimum of the system. And why do we want to keep the interruption time minimum? Because then there will be loss of revenue. If your system equipment or let's say line or anything, if it remains out of service for a longer period of time, you may have a loss of revenue. So ultimately, it is economy where it ends. Fine. So that is why we want to keep the interruption time as minimum as possible, and relay can help us in this by exactly showing us where the fault has occurred in case of permanent fault. Fine. So when we design any protective scheme, so understand the word protective scheme, what it includes, or relaying scheme. So relaying scheme includes relays, relay panels, wiring, relay room, CT, and this is the protection scheme. Okay. So what is cost of protection? If if we take an example, which is the most common thing I discuss generally. Have you seen PMT, pole mounted transformer, nearby your house or your society? Everyone, have you seen pole mounted transformer, PMT? Okay. Now next time when you go, try to look out what type of relays are provided in PMT. Anybody knows the type of protection in PMT? Type of protection that we provide to pole mounted transformer, 11 kV by 415 volt 3-phase 4 wire. Yes, Bhavesh, absolutely correct. Your answer is correct. Anyone else other than Bhavesh? What what is the type of protection we provide to pole mounted transformer? It is a very common word that we use. Okay. So now tell me, do you think there will be relays? PMT? Akshar, roll number 1, tell me. Do you think will there be relays provided at PMT, pole mounted transformer? Akshar, roll number 1. Quick reply from Akshar. Will there be relays for the protection of PMT? Yes or no? What do you think? Yes, Taruna, what do you think? Will there be relays for the protection of pole mounted transformer? Yes, correct, Bhavesh. Your answer is correct. Taruna, quick reply from you. Yes, Taruna. What do you think? Will there be relays on PMT? If you don't know, you have to reply no idea. You can reply in chat box or you can unmute. Yes. Okay, Ashok. Yes, Taruna, are you there? Roll number 24. Okay. Okay. Do you know the type of protection we provide to PMT, pole mounted transformer? Okay, fine. So see, if you have seen here, this is 11 kV side, okay, which is coming from any distribution system substation from 66 kV to 11 kV, which also you have seen somewhere nearby in city areas. Okay, so this is 11 kV feeder that will terminate to PMT, and here on this side there will be three phase four wire RYB and so here we do not provide any protection. Here we provide drop out fuse DO. Normally if you have heard about this, in sometimes in society, let's say you have number of houses, let's say 30 row houses, then you may find that sometime there are few row houses do not have supply then because one of the phase here the fuse might have blown out for one of the phase. Other residentials will have the power supply continue because the dropout fuse here of one of the phase is blown out. Okay, DO ગયો આપણે એવું કહીએ generally if you have heard. This is what a DO means, drop out fuse. Yes, Viral, correct. Uh, and you may find that there is a wire hanging with let's say stones to identify the which of the fuse has blown out. Sometimes you look at it, it is very common thing you will find in PMT. So we do not use any relay here. Why? Because it is not economical to use relay over here. The cost of this distribution, this PMT pole mounted transformer does not allow us to use relay. We can only use fuse, which is economical. Okay, and that is why generally the cost of protective gear, which includes all this, is around 5 to 6% of equipment to be protected. Okay, which is cost of the equipment to be protected. Suppose yeah, in Viva this happens sometimes. Suppose if I say if you have a 5 HP motor, induction motor, and which type of protection will you provide to 5 HP induction motor? You have studied induction motor protection. There are various protection like let's say overcurrent protection, stalling protection, single phasing protection, reversal of the rotation, and many other. There are many other protections provided to induction motor. So if I ask you that 5 HP induction motor, if I have, what are the types of protection you will provide to this 5 HP induction motor, and sometimes what will happen, students will uh, start naming all the protections they know: differential protection, overload protection, single phasing protection, okay, unbalanced supply voltage protection, asynchronous operation protection, that is. But what is cost of 5 HP induction motor? What is cost of 5 HP induction motor? Anybody knows? What will be the cost of 5 HP induction motor around? Okay, Viral, fine. Imran, that is too less, I think. Depending upon, let's say, design, 5, I am saying 5 HP, okay. So 1 HP motor is something which you will have at your home generally, 1 HP or 0.75 uh, kilowatt, what you say, or 1 kilowatt probably. Okay, so that costs around 2 to 3,000, and then 5 HP would be around. If you go to market, you can ask maybe around 10K. Fine, let us take it, and then whatever protection you have said for this motor may cost around 1.2 to 1.3 lakh. This relays, is it feasible that for a 10,000 motor, or an equipment costing of 10,000, we are using protection which is, let's say, 1 lakh, 10 times of its 10 times of its initial cost? Yes, શું કહીએ, સોના કરતા ઘણા મણ મોંઘું, that we call, we can take 10 motors instead of this relay. Okay, so what we provide to 5 HP induction motor? Nothing, fuse or MCB, at least, not more than this. Okay, same way here to this PMT. I'm not talking about 11 kV side, okay, I'm talking about 415 volt side. On 11 kV side, here there will be relays at substation, we will see it later on. So this 5 HP motor we will provide only fuse or MCB, okay, not more than that, because keep in this mind, whatever protective gears that you need for the protection of the equipment, generally the thumb rule is that it must be around 5 to 6% of the total cost of the equipment to be protected. This is the cost economy of a power system, and it is applicable to entire power system starting from generation to the load. Okay, it is applicable from starting from generation to load, everywhere you need to think of this cost economy, every equipment in the power system, except few cases. We will see it later on, that when we can go with this, when the cost of protection can be more than 5 to 6%. Generally, this is thumb rule. Okay, thumb rule followed for the cost of the protection. Now I will end the session here. All of you are requested to enter your enrollment number in the chat box, and those who enter the enrollment number in the chat box can leave the class. If you have any doubt, we can discuss. Otherwise, the session is over. Those who enter the number, please leave the class quickly. યશ, રવિ, હર્ષ, અરુણા, અશોક. એન્ટર થઈ ગયું છે નંબર, then please leave the class. Okay, so Ravi, please unmute. You have entered the number. Okay, fine. So with this, I'll end the session. Thank you.